Tonight on The Roast, Bill Gates calls for higher taxes for the rich, Australia's political parties pay themselves a little more money, and online fashion retailer ASOS recalls a batch of radioactive belts. Wait, recall? But what's going to hold up my radioactive pants? Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, billionaire philanthropist and Flesh Kermit, met with Prime Minister Gillard yesterday and suggested the rich should pay more taxes.
The rich are going to have to pay proportionally slightly more.
And it doesn't get richer than Bill Gates, who, with $67 billion, is the wealthiest person in the world. So when it comes to his taxes...
You know, I paid over $6 billion in U.S. taxes. Glad to have done it.
$6 billion? What he just pays in tax, I have in nothing. Now, of course, saying the wealthy should pay higher taxes is nothing new, but when it comes out of the mouth of a rich person, you do begin to wonder, has that rich person had a stroke? Because traditionally they should be saying this.
Income taxes are too high. Company taxes are destroying jobs. Let's cut taxes. Let's stimulate the economy. Let's make a difference.
Except he's not saying that, so I don't know, what's in it for Gates?
My wife and I are giving our wealth away to help the poorest, to get vaccines out to them, to eradicate polio.
Yeah, nothing. He's just good and nice and... I know I sound angry, but I'm not. This is my confused voice. You see, Bill Gates is super rich, which means he should be spending his money running media empires or chasing presidents for their birth certificates or building a Gates cave. Instead, though, he's out there curing diseases and fighting poverty and guilt-tripping Australia for not increasing its foreign aid.
Well, I think the level 0.5% that both parties have been committed to, you know, leaves beside the 99.5%, and so I'd hope that the voters would choose to make that trade-off.
And he is good at the guilt trip, because shortly after meeting with Mr. Gates, the Prime Minister announced the government would boost funding to its polio eradication efforts by $80 million. To be fair, it is pretty hard to say no to famous people. Now, to tell us more about the proposed tax increase, let's cross to financial correspondent Mark Humphries. Mark, are you happy with Bill Gates' proposed higher taxation of the rich?
Huh? Oh, absolutely, Tom. We should have to pay higher taxes.
Yeah, good man.
But I'm not going to.
Sorry, I thought you just agreed.
Huh? Oh, I do agree, but there's something you're not taking into account. Bill Gates is really nice. Super rich doesn't mean, hey, that's super. It means disgustingly wealthy. So I concur with what Gates has to say, but with a small amendment. All nice rich people should pay higher taxes.
Oh, Mark, that's awful.
And being awful is one of the perks of being in the 1%. And quite frankly, Bill Gates is ruining it for the rest of us with his giving pledge. He wants all wealthy people to commit to giving more than half of their wealth to philanthropy or charity. And he's not even going to claim these massive donations on tax. He's making our small token donations look like small token donations. It's like he doesn't even know how to be rich. I want to see the end of Bill Gates, the philanthropist who cures polio, and witness the rebirth of William Henry Gates III, the evil billionaire who invented Excel.
Well, obviously that's not how everyone sees Bill Gates. That's just the 1%, and not the rich 1%, the evil 1%. So let's turn now to 99%er Nick Richardson, our resident philanthropist down at the Richardson Institute. Nick, the philanthropic community must have been pretty inspired by Bill Gates' recent trip to Australia.
Inspiring, Tom? No. Inspiring is something that's just beyond reach. Something I can achieve if I work hard enough. But Gates, he's too wealthy. He does too much good. The scale goes from people like him, who are eradicating diseases, to people like me, who are raising awareness for diseases that no longer exist because he eradicated them. I feel like I'm wasting my time.
Oh, Nick, but Bill Gates himself said that the wealthy are not always the greatest philanthropists.
Yeah, maybe from the giver's perspective. But for the recipient, rich people make much better philanthropists. I mean, if I give away 1% of my income, a homeless guy buys a sandwich and a bed for the night. But if Bill Gates gives away 1% of his income, that homeless guy buys an island.
Okay, so what? You're going to spend less time donating your money and develop a multinational company?
Yes. Then I could really start making a difference. Windows crashed.
Next up tonight, online fashion retailer ASOS has recalled a batch of metal-studded belts. And it's not because metal studs are so 1987. Instead, it was discovered the belts contained radioactive material acquired during their assembly in India, and that wearing them for more than 500 hours could cause you harm. So it's a good thing women believe that beauty is pain, because nothing is more painful than skin slowly flaking off and your muscles liquefying. Now, according to The Guardian, none of these belts are suitable for public use or possession. So now that belt's off the market, it's the most sought after thing in fashion behind Anna Wintour's approval. But the radioactive belts are set to impact more than just your DNA, with the ASOS returns page now including the option, are you returning this item because it's A, the wrong size, B, faulty, or C, come to life? And obviously, as with any hazardous material, the items are currently being held at a radioactive storage facility, which is both safe and a great way to protect them from moths. But if you're one of those people who bought the belt, well, it's important to know what to do.
So, you're wearing a radioactive belt and don't know what to do. Don't worry, just follow these 3 simple steps. Step 1. Freak out! That belt's radioactive! Step 2. You need to remove that radioactive belt stat. Try tricking someone into taking it off for you. Failing that, take it off yourself. But don't use your hands. You'll need those for touching things. Step 3. Now that you've successfully removed your radioactive belt, post it back to the supplier. All done. Now, stock up on canned goods and prepare for nuclear winter. The Reds are coming. Thank you for watching Radioactive Belts, and you.
That is a really specific safety video. Let's cross now to fashion reporter Rachel Corbett, who's at the radioactive storage facility where those belts are being held. Rachel, what's happening with these belts?
Tom, the belts feel ridiculous. They only contain traces of radioactive material and they're being treated like they're made of uranium, stored here alongside nuclear waste, old X-ray machines and tubs of chemo drugs. It's like they've been sent to a maximum security prison for a white-collar crime.
Okay, so what should have happened to them?
Well, they think they should have just been put in a box and left in a garage for a few years until the radiation just wears off. They're really not happy, Tom.
Sorry, Rach, who's not happy?
The belts.
You keep referring to them like they've told you what they think.
They have, Tom. I'd like you to meet Belty.
What the hell is that?
That's what happens when you put something that's slightly radioactive in a space with extremely radioactive materials.
Belty needs pants.
It's okay, Belty. I'll be your friend. Belty! Belty!
Thanks, Rach. And finally tonight, Australia's major political parties are set to reap the rewards of new changes to electoral law. Now, to understand these changes, we need to go back to 2010, a carefree time of cops LAC, androgynous pop star Adam Lambert and catastrophic spills, both oil and Labor. Now, if you voted in the 2010 election, your vote was worth $2.47 to the party that you voted for.
Sorry, Tom, pardon my ignorance.
Yeah.
My vote's worth money?
Yeah, it is, yeah. For every primary vote that a party receives in an election, they get $2.47 of taxpayer money to cover a campaign's administrative costs, like TV commercials and print ads during election time. But now, though, a new agreement's been reached so that each vote's going to be worth an additional $1.
So that comes in effect next election?
No, it's being applied retroactively to April this year, which means that each party's going to be given even more money for those 2010 electoral votes.
So if I voted Labor in 2010...
Then Labor's going to be getting more money from your vote to fund the 2013 campaign.
But what if I don't like Labor now in 2013?
Yeah, well, you should have thought about that 3 years ago.
Yes, I should.
That was weird. But why the need for this increase? Well, Labor Minister Anthony Albanese reportedly told the Left Caucus, the party's broke and we need the money. But instead of hosting some sort of sexy Labor car wash, the Financial Review says an agreement was secretly negotiated between Labor, the Liberal Party and the Nationals over more than a year. Jazz Twemlow investigated how this policy came together and filed this report from Parliament House in Canberra.
After claims of misogyny on one side and standing next to ditch the witch posters on the other, it's amazing to think that members of the Labour Party and the Coalition met in the room behind me to discuss the one thing they had in common: their desire for more money and the best way to get it. In here, Labour and Coalition put aside their differences on the deficit and agreed on how to make it bigger. In these chairs, Capulet and Montague became Romeo and Juliet, making out on piles of taxpayer money. The only thing they couldn't agree on was who loved money more. After their talks ended, they returned to the real world to resume fighting, leaving 5 minutes apart so it didn't look like they were together. But knowing the only time they would ever agree on something again would be when both of their parties stood to make millions of dollars. Jazz Twemlow, Secret Meeting Room, Canberra.
Thanks, Jazz. And before we go tonight, let's check back in with Clark Richards, who I understand has somehow gone back in time to Election Day 2010 to warn himself.
Oh, Ms. Gillard, you've got my vote. Surplus and no carbon tax? Hey, you, don't do it. Don't do it. You've got no idea. You hate Labor in 2013. And if you vote for either of these parties, they'll steal your money. Throw your vote away, all right? Just throw your vote away. You look good.
And that's it for tonight's episode. Clark,
Did it work? Did I prevent any of those parties getting my $2.47?
you sure did, but unfortunately they're still going to get everyone else's. Good night.